Quick warning, there may be some minor spoilers for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, exercise caution. I am a big Nintendo fan, both my brother and I. There have definitely been a few Mario Party themed birthday parties throughout the years. So when there was the announcement that Illumination would be creating the feature-length Mario film, I was filled with equal parts of excitement and skepticism. And now, having seen it, I somehow feel exactly the same. As a Nintendo fan, I was ecstatic while watching it, but as a movie fan, I've since felt myself grow critical of the film as a whole. And that seems to be the consensus from the general movie and gaming communities. First of all, I'm a big proponent for the ideology that storytelling and filmmaking come first, and the context of the intellectual properties they may be inspired from comes second. It's usually best that the movie is able to use the new medium of film to effectively transform it in a new and necessary way. But the biggest criticism of the Mario Bros. Movie is that it didn't do enough to make itself seem like a movie that could stand on its own. It requires the viewer to have prior knowledge or understanding of aspects of the world that wouldn't be immediately enjoyable to a new audience. Essentially, it relies on nostalgia to succeed. Something I particularly disliked was that the movie definitely pushes some huge nostalgia bait specifically targeted at Gen Xers who may have grown up with the original game. While the score is fantastic and utilizes lots of different recognizable themes from Koji Kondo's original scores of the games, the movie relies too heavily on using 80s pop and rock music. It's pretty clear that these song choices serve no greater purpose than to cater directly to the moms and dads' memories of playing their NESs or hanging out at the local arcade. I clearly remember being taken out of the movie when, as Mario, Peach, and Toad are driving through the Jungle Kingdom, the score faded out and a-ha's Take On Me began playing. It didn't match the atmosphere or the visuals or anything. It seemed so out of place. I felt that it would have been a perfect time to cue up some symphonic arrangement of that iconic Donkey Kong Country music. But instead, as what I can only assume was an Illumination decision, which is who I'm blaming for all the nostalgia-driven licensed music, we get something unoriginal and whatever the opposite of immersion is. Disimmersion, I guess. I say, leave the 80s nostalgia to the insurance commercials, and use the subject matter to its full potential. But besides that, I was a big fan of how the movie used its source material. Let me repeat, I love Mario. So from a fan's perspective, this is like a dream come true. I had so much fun seeing these characters and creatures and enemies reimagined in an immersive cinematic experience. I loved the, what I like to call, lore building aspects. Things like taking the concept of the original stages from the game as more of an obstacle course to train Mario, contextualizing the Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. Games as being legitimate aspects of the universe, and the socio-political climate of the Mushroom and Jungle Kingdoms, that sort of stuff. I know there may be a lot of fans out there that'll be upset because the movie doesn't fit their headcanon, but since it's such a fun and goofy game, I like that they approach it in a fun and goofy way. I will say that since it focuses so much on fan service that it ends up speeding through parts that could really use more time and attention. It's most jarring in the scenes where Mario first enters the Mushroom Kingdom. After being initially surprised and freaked out by the world around him, he almost immediately accepts it and starts following Toad to Princess Peach's castle. The scene that we see in the trailer is pretty much exactly what we get in the movie. There's no additional dialogue, no further engagement between two of our main characters. They just accept the situation and start on the adventure. We see this again later when Mario meets Peach. They do the whole false meet cute trope, but then without any further questions, Peach is ready to allow Mario on the adventure with her. It feels unnatural and rushed. A lot of this movie does. I'd even argue that if they focused more on establishing character dynamics and motivations early on, and less time spent indulging all of the different references to the games, they would be able to save some of that content for later movie installments, since it seems like they're ready to expand this into a super cinematic universe. That's what I'm calling it, of course. I wouldn't say that all of the game references are bad though. There were clever ways of incorporating it, like at the beginning where they see Mario and Luigi navigating through a construction zone and the camera follows them in a truck that acts like a side-scrolling platformer. The movie does a great job of making you feel like you're playing the video games. It's something that other video game adaptations to movies or TV fail to do, where most video game movies are sourced from narrative-based games, which makes them very easy to turn into a movie because the story and characters are already there. I'm looking at you, The Last of Us. Sometimes it really doesn't feel like a video game movie, but the Super Mario movie actually takes the abstract nature of 2D platforming or 3D platforming or racing or combat games and it depicts it incredibly accurately from a gamer's perspective. The movie imitated gameplay to the point where if Mario messes up, I get frustrated, and when he succeeds, I get pumped up about it. In this aspect, I feel that the Mario movie really changed the game of what to expect when adapting games for the big screen. The parts that stuck with me, however, are the emotional moments. We don't get much emotional stuff in Mario games, so when we do, it's super effective. There were a few moments in here that almost reeled some tears out of me, which I would attribute more to the effectiveness of the movie than a pre-existing connection or nostalgia I had from the games. I was hoping to see more of Charlie Day as Luigi since they wrote him out of the story for a while. But maybe depending on how this one fares, we can expect to see more of him in a sequel? Overall, it was a fun and engaging film. This is something I've been looking forward to for months, and I was completely satisfied with the experience I got. Sometimes, it's not about whether or not the movie is objectively good. I didn't come into the theater expecting a Godfather-level plotline. Sometimes, it's good to just have fun. We'll have to wait and see how much it holds up on rewatch, but regardless, this is definitely one of my favorite movies so far this year. I'm gonna give it a super out of 10.